Okay, students, so let's get started with IGCSE Physics, May June 2025, Paper 2, Variant 3. This is a 45 minutes paper. Let's start with the first question. Which quantity can be measured using a ruler? कौन सी quantity को हम directly ruler से measure कर सकते हैं? The distance traveled by a toy car in 1 second. Yeah, that could be measured because that is a straight line distance. Okay. A car is driven from one town to another town along a road. The distance is not straight. ठीक है, road जो है वो straight नहीं है. ठीक है. The driver of the car divides the total distance by the total time. Okay, so you are dividing the total distance by what? Total time. If you divide the total distance by total time, what will you get? You will get the average speed. Any answers like that, you will get B as your answer. Which quantity can be determined by the area under the speed time graph? Area under the speed time graph आपको क्या देता है? Distance. B is your answer. 4 पे आ जाओ. The students are asked to determine. Students are asked for a statement about the weight of an object. Okay. Three of the statements are listed. The weight is the quantity of matter in an object. No. The weight is the effect of gravitational field on an object. Yep. This is the correct statement. The weight is the force of attraction between object and earth. हाँ ये भी हो सकता है. Weight जो है force of attraction between object and earth भी होता है. D is your answer. Let's move on to question 5. Samples of different liquids have equal masses. Okay, so your mass is constant, or you can say equal masses. Equal masses कह लो, constant masses कह लो, whatever you want to say. The volume of the samples are 190 cm cube, 200 cm cube, 225 cm cube. Okay. Liquids are poured into a large measuring cylinder, and the liquids from three separate layers, they do not mix. ठीक है. बेटा liquids are poured into a large measuring cylinder, and the liquids form three separate layers since they do not mix. Okay. What are the readings on the measuring cylinder? आपने reading on the measuring cylinder निकालनी है at the two boundaries between the samples. So you have to calculate the readings on the measuring cylinder at the two boundaries between the samples. First of all, बच्चों, do you realize density is equals to what? Mass over volume. And that density is equals to mass over volume. If your mass is constant, if your mass is constant or if you have equal masses, what will you do? Density will become inversely proportional to volume. है ना? अगर आपका mass constant होगा, you can replace that with a direct proportionality sign. Density becomes inversely proportional to volume. Now, जिस object का volume सबसे कम होगा, the one which has the lowest volume, will have the greatest density. Now, if I make a measuring cylinder here, 190 cm cube has the lowest volume. It will have the highest density. Beta 190 cm cube का volume lowest है, it will have the highest density. If you have the highest density, you will be collected at the bottom end of the measuring cylinder. आप बिल्कुल ही bottom पे collect हो जाओगे at the measuring cylinder. Then your volume is 200 cm cube. इसके बाद आपका 200 cm cube वाला liquid आ जाएगा. What will your total reading become? 190 plus 200. This will become 390 cm cube. ये मैंने कैसे पता चल लगाया कि पहले 190 आ रहा है पे 200 आ रहा है? Because बेटा the mass has become constant. Mass constant हो गया तो density becomes inversely proportional to volume. जिस चीज का volume सबसे कम वो सबसे ज्यादा dense. And the thing that is the most dense will come at the bottom, then less dense, and then the least dense. So what are the first two readings? 190 cm cube, 390 cm cube. A is your answer. Perfect. Now let's see question number 6. A car moves along a level road. Okay. The diagram shows all of the horizontal forces acting on the car. So these are all the horizontal forces acting on the car. Which statement is correct? कौन सा statement correct है? Can you see the forward force is 2000 Newton? The backward force is 800 Newton and 500 Newton. what will be your resultant force beta? Resultant force क्या होगा? 2000 minus 800 minus 500. The resultant force comes out to be what? हाँ जी, 700 Newton in the forward direction. Forward direction में resultant force आ रही है 700 Newton. That means what? The car is accelerating or the car is speeding up. B is your answer. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. आगे बढ़ते हैं. A car is traveling around a circular track. Okay, so a car is traveling around a circular track at constant speed as shown. In which direction is the resultant force? बेटा resultant force कहाँ act कर रही है? Towards the center. B is your answer. Simple. Let's see question number 8. A railway truck of mass 8,000 kg moves with a velocity of 1 meter per second to the right. It collides with a railway truck of 12,000 kg moving at 2 meters per second to the left. So let's draw the scenario before the collision. Let's draw the scenario before collision. Before collision, you have a truck that is of mass 8,000 kg. Let's write it like this 8,000. Oh. You have a truck that has a mass of what? 8,000 kg. Perfect. It is moving towards the right with a velocity of what? 1 meters per second. Then you have a truck that is of mass 12,000 kg. It moves towards the left with a velocity of 2 meters per second. After collision क्या हो रहा है बेटा? What is happening after collision? After collision, both the trucks join together and they move off together. So both the trucks are joined together like this. You have to calculate the velocity after collision. You have to calculate the velocity after collision. क्या करेंगे बेटा? You will say momentum before collision is equals to the total momentum after collision. You can say that the vectors towards the right are positive, the vectors towards the left are negative. What will be your momentum before collision? 8,000 into 1 plus 12,000. Can you realize this velocity is towards the left? बेटा ये जो 12,000 kg वाला ट्रक है उसकी वेलोसिटी कहाँ है? Towards the left. If your velocity is towards the left, you will take that as a negative 2. Is equals to momentum after collision. After collision, what is your total mass? 8,000 plus 12,000. What will be your total mass? 20,000 into velocity v. Can you calculate this v? Can you calculate this v? Humble little v. कर सकते हो उसको calculate? Yes. 8,000 minus 2400. This comes out to be what? Minus 16,000 is equals to 20,000 v. Divide कर दो. 16,000 divided by 20,000 is equals to v. निकालो बेटा क्या आंसर आता है v का? v comes out to be negative 0.8 meters per second. अब सर ये नेगेटिव का साइन क्या रिप्रेजेंट कर रहा है? व्हाट इज द नेगेटिव का साइन रिप्रेजेंटिंग? Negative sign is representing that your object is moving towards the left. B is your answer. A stone is dropped from a bridge which is 22 meters above a river. What is the speed of the stone when it hits the water? तो आप क्या कहोगे? Gravitational potential energy gets converted into kinetic energy. ये ग्रेविटेशन पोटेंशियल एनर्जी का क्या फॉर्मूला होता है बेटा? हाँ, ग्रेविटेशन पोटेंशियल एनर्जी का क्या फॉर्मूला होता है बेटा? एम जी एच. काइनेटिक एनर्जी का क्या फॉर्मूला होता है? 1/2 mv². एम एम कैंसिल आउट. You have to calculate the velocity. Multiply this to the other side. 2gh under root is equals to your velocity. 2 into 9.8 into the height, that is 22. Can you calculate the velocity, bachcho? 2 into 9.8 into 22 taken under root. Your velocity comes out to be 20.8 meters per second. B is your answer for 9. 9 का आंसर क्या हो गया बेटा? B. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. आगे बढ़ते हैं बच्चों. Now let's see this. Which row describes the structure of a gas? The distance between the gas particles क्या है? बहुत ज़्यादा far apart. And the motion of the gas particles is random. D is your answer. The particles of a gas in a container of fixed volume. Okay, so your volume is fixed or you have constant volume. Gain energy in the kinetic store. Okay, so if your kinetic energy is increasing, what does this mean? We have studied kinetic energy is directly proportional to temperature. If your kinetic energy is increasing, that means your temperature will increase. And when your volume is constant and your temperature increases, बेटा जब भी आपका वॉल्यूम कांस्टेंट होता है और टेम्परेचर इंक्रीज हो जाता है, this causes your pressure to increase as well. Whenever your volume is constant and your temperature increases, consequently your pressure also increases. A is your answer. Let's move on to 12. Gas particles exert a pressure when they collide with the walls of a container. Which statement about the gas particles is correct? When the gas particles collide with the wall of the container, what happens? They experience a change in momentum. So option A or B cancel out हो जाएंगे. They experience a change in momentum and the pressure is equals to what? Force over area. D is your answer. Let's move on to question 13. A solid changes into a liquid. Okay, so a solid is changing into a liquid. Which term describes this change in state? बेटा अगर solid को liquid में turn कर रहे हो, what is this process called? Melting. D is your answer. Let's see this. The diagram shows some of the apparatus used to determine the specific heat capacity of a metal block. अच्छा जी आप specific heat capacity determine कर रहे हो, small c determine कर रहे हो of a metal block. Which additional piece of apparatus are required to find the specific heat capacity? बेटा specific heat capacity किस तरह find करते थे? Energy Q divided by M delta temperature. Do you have the thermometer? This will measure the delta T. मास किससे मेजर करेंगे? बीम बैलेंस से. सो यू नीड अ बीम बैलेंस. You need a beam balance for mass. How will you measure the energy? एनर्जी के लिए हम क्या फॉर्मूला लगाते थे? पावर इनटू टाइम. पावर कैसे मेजर होती है बेटा? करंट इनटू वोल्टेज मल्टीप्लाइड बाय टाइम विल गिव यू द एनर्जी. तो करंट मेजर करने के लिए तो एम मीटर है, बट वोल्टेज मेजर करने के लिए क्या चाहिए? वोल्ट मीटर. टाइम मेजर करने के लिए क्या चाहिए? स्टॉप वॉच. सो यू नीड दीज थ्री इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स: स्टॉप वॉच टू मेजर द टाइम, voltmeter to measure the voltage, balance to measure the mass. A is your answer. 15 पे आ जाओ. Four different surfaces are at the same high temperature. Which surface emits thermal radiation at the slowest rate? कौन सा surface emit कर रहा है thermal radiation at the slowest rate? First of all, black वाले options तो cancel कर दो, because black surfaces are good emitters. हमें तो white चाहिए. White में भी हमें shiny चाहिए. Shiny के बाद we want a lower surface area, because the lower the surface area, the lesser the emission. C is your answer. Let's move on to 16. An object has a constant temperature. Okay, which statement is correct? The rate at which the object receives energy is the same rate at which the object transfers energy away. बिल्कुल सही बात है. If you are at constant temperature, let's say you are receiving 10 joules of energy, तो आप बाहर की तरफ भी 10 joule ही दे रहे हो, आपका net energy zero होता है. That's why you are at constant temperature. Let's move on to question 17. Which row correctly describe light waves? Light waves are transverse wave and they travel perpendicular to the direction of wave travel. 18 पे आ जाओ. A narrow beam of light consists of two waves of different wavelengths. The beam of light hit a sharp edge. बेटा जब आप sharp edge पे hit करते हो, let's say like this is your edge. Whenever you hit a sharp edge, what do you perform? You undergo the process of diffraction. Okay. What will be seen beyond the sharp edge? Both waves continue to travel? No. Both way na. The wave of a longer wavelength will have a larger diffraction and hence it will bend more. बेटा जो waves larger wavelength carry करेंगी वो larger diffraction perform करेंगी around the sharp edge compared to the shorter wavelength. C is your answer. जितनी ज्यादा wavelength होगी उतनी ज्यादा diffraction. Okay. An object is placed 30 centimeter in front of a plane mirror. Okay, so let's say this is your mirror. This is your object that is 30 centimeter from the mirror. What will happen? The image will be 30 centimeter from the mirror. Okay, so let's see any options like that. The image is the same size. Yeah, that's correct. Image same size की होगी वो तो correct है. C और D options cancel out हो जाएंगे. Secondly, and 30 centimeter from the object. No, that's incorrect. The image is the same size and 60 centimeter from the object. That's correct. 30 ये हो गया, 30 ये हो गया. So your image is 60 centimeters from the object. 30 plus 30 is 60. The image is same size and 60 centimeter from the object. B is your answer. Let's move on to question 20. Which statement about total internal reflection at the glass air boundary is correct? The angle of incidence, no. The angle of incidence, no. The critical angle is proportional to the refract, no. That's also incorrect. The speed of light in glass must be less than the speed of light in air. D is the correct answer. बेटा हमेशा ये बात याद रखो टोटल इंटरनल रिफ्लेक्शन कब होती है व्हेन यू आर गोइंग फ्रॉम अ मोर डेंस मटेरियल to a less dense material. And if you are going from a more dense material to a less dense material, you want the speed of light in glass to be less compared to the speed of light in air. D is your answer. आगे बढ़ते हैं 21 पे आते हैं. What is the speed of radio waves in a vacuum and what is the speed of gamma rays in a vacuum? Radio waves की क्या speed है 3 into 10 raised to the power of 8. Gamma rays की क्या speed है बेटा 3 into 10 raised to the power of 8. C is your answer. A student makes a sound in front of a large wall. Let's say ये आपका छोटा सा cute little student है. This is your wall. The student is making a sound. She hears an echo at time t after making the sound. The speed of the sound in air is v. Okay. So basically, the speed of the sound in air is v. And she hears the echo after time t. The speed of sound is v. Can you calculate the distance? V into t. But ये total distance है. This is the total distance traveled. This is the total distance traveled. What do you have to calculate? You have to calculate the distance of one time, the distance between the student and the wall. आपने ये one time का distance calculate करना है. How will you do that? That is equals to V into T. That is the total distance divided by 2. Any answers like that? V into T divided by 2. See your answer. What is a compression? Compression is a point in a longitudinal wave where the particles are close to each other. A is your answer. Okay, 24 पे आ जाओ. Which row describes the magnetic field around a weak magnet? Around a weak magnet, magnetic field किस तरह describe होती है? From north to south pole. And for a weak magnet, magnetic fields are far apart. B is your answer. Okay, let's see question number 25. A 0.6 meter length of resistance wire has a diameter of 0.25 millimeter and has a resistance of 6 ohms. Okay. A second piece of resistance wire of the same material has a diameter of 0.5 millimeter, also has a resistance of 6 ohms. What is the length of the second piece of wire? अच्छा जी बेटा जो आपका फर्स्ट पीस ऑफ वायर है उसका डायमीटर क्या है 0.25 मिलीमीटर लेंथ क्या है 0.6 मीटर्स ओके रेजिस्टेंस क्या है 6 ohms perfect now what will happen if the diameter doubles देख रहे हो सेकेंड वायर में क्या हो रहा है डायमीटर डबल हो रहा है 0.25 से 0.5 जा रहा है डायमीटर डबल हो रहा है बेटा डू यू रिमेम्बर दैट रेजिस्टेंस इज इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल टू एरिया एरिया का क्या फॉर्मूला होता है एरिया इज इक्वल टू पाई डी स्क्वायर ओवर 4 डी इज व्हाट डायमीटर so resistance will become what inversely proportional to diameter का square resistance is inversely proportional to diameter का square you can write it here as well इस तरह से आप लिख सकते हो कि resistance is directly proportional to what resistance is inversely proportional to diameter का square नाउ इफ योर डायमीटर इज डबलिंग, बेटा अगर आपका डायमीटर डबल हो रहा है, 0.25 से 0.5 मिलीमीटर की तरफ जा रहा है, if your diameter is doubling, it is going from 0.25 to 0.5 millimeter, what will happen to your resistance? Your resistance will decrease by 1/4. अगर resistance initially 6 थी तो अब वो क्या हो जाएगी? 1.5. Your resistance will decrease by 1/4. It will become 1.5 ohms. देखो मैंने क्या किया यहाँ पे, I already knew that resistance is inversely proportional to area. रेजिस्टेंस क्या है? इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल टू एरिया। एरिया का क्या फॉर्मूला है? पाई डी स्क्वायर ओवर 4। अब ये पाई डी स्क्वायर ओवर 4 जब मैं यहाँ पे सब्सटीट्यूट करूंगा बेटा, मेरे पास एक और रिलेशनशिप आ जाएगा, रेजिस्टेंस इज इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल टू डायमीटर स्क्वायर। यू मस्ट रिमेंबर दिस इफ यू वांट टू गेट एन ए स्टार इन आईटी फिजिक्स। रेजिस्टेंस इज इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल टू डायमीटर का स्क्वायर। इसका मतलब क्या हुआ सर? इसका मतलब सिंपल सा बेसिक सा ये हुआ कि इफ योर रेजिस्टेंस इज डबलिंग, योर रेजिस्टेंस, सॉरी, इफ योर डायमीटर इज डबलिंग, इसका बेसिक सा मतलब ये हुआ बेटा कि अगर आपका डायमीटर डबल हो रहा है, डी से 2d जा रहा है, योर रेजिस्टेंस विल डिक्रीज बाय अ फैक्टर ऑफ 4। रेजिस्टेंस 6 से 1.5 ओम्स हो जाएगी। लेकिन क्या आप रियलाइज कर रहे हो, आपने रेजिस्टेंस तो वो ही रखनी है, आपने रेजिस्टेंस तो वही रखनी है 6 ohms. You cannot decrease the resistance. You want your resistance to be 6 ohms. It must increase from 1.5 to 6 ohms. Now देखो बेटा, आपका डायमीटर डबल हुआ, आपकी रेजिस्टेंस 1/4 हो गई है, 1.5 ohms हो गई है। लेकिन आप ये चाह रहे हो कि आपकी रेजिस्टेंस 6 ohm रहे, तो आप क्या करना चाह रहे हो? You want your resistance to increase by a factor of 4. Now how can you do that? We know resistance is directly proportional to length. आपकी इनिशियल लेंथ क्या थी बेटा? 0.6 मीटर्स। तो अगर आप इस लेंथ को 4 टाइम्स इंक्रीज कर दो, 2.4 मीटर्स कर दो, तो आपकी रेजिस्टेंस भी 4 टाइम्स इंक्रीज हो जाएगी। डी इज योर आंसर। देखो इस सवाल को मैं वापस समझा रहा हूँ बेटा, वापस समझ। हो ये रहा है दैट योर डायमीटर इज डबलिंग। अब डायमीटर डबल होगा तो ऑब्वियसली रेजिस्टेंस क्या हो जाएगी? 1/4, बिकॉज रेजिस्टेंस इज इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल टू डायमीटर का स्क्वायर। सेकेंडली, अगर आपकी रेजिस्टेंस 1/4 हो जाती है बेटा, तो आपकी रेजिस्टेंस की वैल्यू क्या हो जाएगी? 6 से 1.5 हो जाएगी। लेकिन यू वांट कि आपकी रेजिस्टेंस 1.5, यू वांट कि आपकी रेजिस्टेंस 6 ही रहे। देखो आपकी रेजिस्टेंस 1/4 हो गई, क्यों हो गई 1/4? क्योंकि आपका डायमीटर डबल हो गया था, तो योर रेजिस्टेंस बिकम्स 1.5 ओम। लेकिन आप चाह रहे हो, इन द क्वेश्चन इट इज रिटन कि यू वांट योर resistance to remain 6 ohms. So you will multiply the resistance by 4. How can you increase the resistance by a factor of 4? If your length increases by a factor of 4. If your length goes from 0.6 multiplied by 4, 2.4 meters, your resistance will also increase by a factor of 4. D is your answer. Let's see this. A circuit contains a cell with an electromotive force of 2. The current is this. How much energy is transferred in the cell in 2 minutes? आपने एनर्जी निकालनी है in 2 minutes. How will you do that? Very very easy. क्या होगी एनर्जी, कोई बताना चाहेगा? एनर्जी का फॉर्मूला क्या होता है भाई? करंट इंटू वोल्टेज इंटू टाइम। करंट क्या है? 2, वोल्टेज क्या है? 2, टाइम क्या हो जाएगा? 2 मिनट्स, 2 × 60। ये क्या आंसर आ रहा है? आई थिंक 480 जूल्स अकॉर्डिंग टू मेंटल मैथ्स comes out to be the answer, है ना? 480 joules आ रहा है। Yes, he is your answer. What is the electromotive force? The charge that, no, the energy supplied per unit charge as the charge passes through the complete cell is electromotive force. चलो जी आगे बढ़ते हैं। Four lamps and four switches are connected to the power supply as shown. When all switches are closed, all the lamps light up. अच्छा जी, जब सारे switch आप close करते हो तब सारे लैंप लाइट अप हो जाते हैं। ओके। When one of the switch is open, only one lamp goes out. अच्छा जी, जब आप एक स्विच को बंद करते हो तो एक लैंप गो आउट हो जाता है। विच स्विच इज ओपन? अगर आप रियलाइज करो, स्विच सी को मैं ओपन कर दूं तो लैंप ये वाला चलेगा, डी भी चलेगा, ये भी चलेगा। सो इफ आई ओनली ओपन स्विच सी, तो ये वाला लैंप स्विच ऑफ हो जाएगा एंड वन लैंप गोज आउट। सी इज योर आंसर। In which mains electric wire are the fuse and switch placed? बेटा फ्यूज कहाँ प्लेस होता है? लाइव वायर में. स्विच भी कहाँ प्लेस होता है? लाइव वायर में. बी इज योर आंसर. 30 पे आ जाओ. The diagram shows a wire moving downwards in a magnetic field between two magnetic poles. Okay, so the wire is moving downward, force is being applied downward. The magnetic field is like this. There is an induced current in the wire because of the movement. Can you calculate the direction of this induced current? Can you calculate the direction of induced current? हमेशा याद रखो, induced current की direction निकालने के लिए कौन सा रूल अप्लाई करते हैं? Fleming's right hand rule. हमेशा करंट की डायरेक्शन निकालने के लिए बेटा कौन सा रूल अप्लाई करते हैं? फ्लेमिंग राइट हैंड रूल. योर मैग्नेटिक फील्ड इज गोइंग फ्रॉम नॉर्थ टू साउथ. दिस इज योर फर्स्ट फिंगर. योर फोर्स इज पॉइंटिंग डाउनवर्ड. थंब इज पॉइंटिंग डाउनवर्ड. करंट कहाँ पे आ जाएगा बेटा? करंट कहाँ पे आ जाएगा? करंट विल कम आउट ऑफ द पेज लाइक दिस. आउट ऑफ द पेज आ जाएगा करंट. सिंपल. The induced current produces a force on the wire. What is the direction of force? अच्छा जी, ये जो induced current flow कर रहा है ना वायर की तरफ in the magnetic field, this produces a force. बेटा फोर्स की डायरेक्शन निकालने के लिए कौन सा रूल यूज करते हैं? Always remember whenever you are calculating the direction of force, Fleming's left hand rule. अब फ्लेमिंग्स लेफ्ट हैंड रूल के अकॉर्डिंग नॉर्थ से साउथ आपकी फर्स्ट फिंगर. करंट आ रहा है बाहर. अप्लाई करो. वेयर विल योर फोर्स पॉइंट? द फोर्स विल पॉइंट इन द अपवर्ड डायरेक्शन. योर थंब विल पॉइंट इन द अपवर्ड डायरेक्शन. दैट इज ऑप्शन ए. So 1 to 31. When the generator shown rotates, there is an AC electromotive force across the resistor. Okay. Between point P and Q. Okay. Diagram 1 shows the position of the coil at time t is equal to 0. Diagram 1 का वही position of the coil at time t is equal to 0. The clock rotates clockwise at time t is equal to t when the coil is in the horizontal position. बेटा AC जनरेटर में मैंने हमेशा क्या बताया है? EMF is maximum when you are in the horizontal position and when you are in the vertical position EMF is 0. Perfect. The graph shows the output EMF between point P and Q plotted against time. Which point shows the EMF at time t1? Can you realize at time t1 you are in the horizontal position? Horizontal position पे EMF maximum होता है. A is your answer here. What is the purpose of split ring commutators? भाई split ring commutators का क्या purpose होता है? The split ring commutators ensure that the turning effect of the motor stays in the same direction at all times. D is your answer. Simple, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Beta particles have less mass compared to an alpha particle, but the speed of a beta particle emitted during the radioactive decay is approximately 20 times greater than the speed of an alpha particle. Okay. Which statement correctly compare the properties of these two particles? अच्छा जी, properties of these two particles कैसे compare करेंगे? Alpha particle are less penetrating, no more penetrating power इस पे नहीं depend करती kinetic energy पे. Alpha particles are more ionizing because they have more kinetic energy. RT is correct. Which observation provides evidence for the nuclear atom? अच्छा जी, attraction of opposite charges? No. Emission of gamma rays? No. Scattering of alpha particles by a thin part provides the evidence of a nuclear atom. Which effect on living things is not caused by ionizing radiations? बेटा क्या चीज आयोनाइजिंग रेडिएशंस की वजह से नहीं होती? लेट्स सी. कैंसर तो होता है, सेल डेथ भी होती है, म्यूटेशन भी होता है, इन्फेक्शन नहीं होती आयोनाइजेशन रेडिएशन. आइसोटोप X is radioactive. Which statement about X must be correct? A nucleus of X is unstable. A is your answer. Let's further see this. An experiment is done to measure the radiation from a radioactive source. The source has a half-life of 10 minutes. The source is placed close to a detector. ठीक है, source place की हमने close to a detector that is connected to the counter as shown. The average background radiation is 20 counts per minute. Half-life क्या थी? 10 minutes. Okay. At the start of the experiment, the count rate is 1000. Can you calculate the corrected count rate? 1000 minus 20, that is 980. 10 मिनट्स के बाद आपने काउंट रेट बताना है बेटा। 10 मिनट्स के बाद 1 लाख, एक हाफ लाइफ हो जाएगी, काउंट रेट क्या हो जाएगा? 490 प्लस द बैकग्राउंड रेडिएशन अगेन, काउंट रेट क्या हो गया? 510। सी इज योर आंसर। इन विच डायरेक्शन डज द सन अपीयर टू मूव एवरी डे व्हेन व्यूड फ्रॉम अर्थ? हाँ जी, सन किस डायरेक्शन में मूव करता है व्हेन व्यूड फ्रॉम अर्थ? ईस्ट टू वेस्ट। ऑलवेज रिमेंबर दिस एज योर की पॉइंट। A distant galaxy is moving away from the Milky Way at this speed. What is the approximate distance you have to calculate? D. कौन सा फॉर्मूला लगाएंगे? V is equals to Hubble space constant into D. V की वैल्यू क्या है बेटा? 440000 डिवाइडेड बाई D। हमने निकालना है हबल स्पेस कांस्टेंट की वैल्यू, याद है? 2.2 10 raised to the power of minus 18, 2.2 10 raised to the power of minus 18 into D. Can you calculate the value of D? बेटा डी की वैल्यू निकाल सकते हो जी, बिल्कुल। 440000, 2.2 10 raised to the power of minus 18। बताओ भाई डी की वैल्यू क्या आती है? 2.1 10 raised to the power of 24 meters। सी इज योर आंसर। आगे बढ़ते हैं बेटा। The orbit of Mercury is closer to the sun than the orbit of Earth is to the sun. How do the values of gravitational field strength of the sun near the Mercury and the orbital speed of Mercury compared to the value of Earth? ग्रेविटेशनल फील्ड स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ द सन नियर मर्क्यूरी क्या होगी? ग्रेटर होगी। सी और डी कैंसिल आउट। ऑर्बिटल स्पीड ऑफ मर्क्यूरी भी क्या होगी? फास्टर होगी। ए इज योर आंसर। दिस मार्क्स द एंड ऑफ दिस पेपर। इफ यू हैव एनी क्वेश्चंस यू कैन आस्क।